Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. It means we're brought to you by Darrell May of Trusty Properties. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up, you're here with us. This is an especially loaded show here on this Tuesday. LSU got off the practice field about an hour and 15 minutes ago. I will give you what I saw out there. There are some trends that are starting to materialize. We'll get to it. Terrell covers the Saints for ESPN. She's with us in 15 minutes. Devin Neal is injured. He's going to miss a little bit of time. What does that mean for the Saints running back rotation? We'll talk about it with Kat. Glen West always with us on Tuesday. See the senior writer of Go 24/7. He's here at 1:30. We'll have Sharif Ishak at 2:30 talking Saints as well. We didn't get into Bruce Feldman's Freaks list yesterday. We got to get into some of that where it concerns with LSU as well as Clemson. And we'll meet the freshmen. We'll do Aiden Anding and Jacob Bradford as far as meeting those two guys at the end of hour number one. So let's rock and roll the way we do every day. It's our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, it's the 5th of August. LSU was in full pads today for the first time. And also went for about 2 hours, which is the first time they had done that. So this was easily the most intense practice in terms of physicality as well as in terms of length that LSU has gone through in camp. And I think it all built towards the end, which is what I'm going to talk about most. We saw a lot of individual today, but it all built towards the 11-on-11 that they worked on at the end. It was kind of a scrimmage setting. They did work down in distances. And it was the highlight of the day in terms of the information that we can relay to you. And before I get into play-by-play and before I get into any sort of statistics, I want to just set the tone here. This is the part of camp where I kind of bemoaned LSU from a secondary perspective the last 2 years. And I'm not quite there yet with the offensive line, but I will tell you this. The defensive line is getting the better of them consistently. We have talked about Bernard Gooden a lot. He made 2 more tackles for loss today in limited time. I don't even think Bernard Gooden, in the plays that we have seen in 11-on-11, I don't think he's been out there even close to 75 snaps, which is what a real game would be. I've absolutely seen 8 tackles for loss from him. Absolutely. And there were 2 more today. Caden Durham took a handoff, dropped in the backfield. Harlan Berry took a handoff, dropped in the backfield. This is every single day with Bernard Gooden, and I want to give him his flowers. He was billed as a disruptive, quick, up-the-field defensive tackle. He is playing that role to perfection. But at this point, when it happens this consistently, you do have to look at the offensive line and go, hey, somebody block this guy. And they're not. They are not blocking him. And today, they didn't block Jack Pyburn either. Pyburn had a significant tackle for loss on Caden Durham that I think went for a loss of like 4 yards. I mean, Durham took a handoff in the backfield, and Pyburn was there immediately and flattened him. And then earlier in the scrimmage, Pyburn was working off the offensive left side, his defensive right side, and he went up the field on Tyree Adams, hit him with an inside spin move, and actually took Garrett Nussmeier to the ground. Nussmeier was completely fine, popped up immediately, was not in any way negatively affected, but just watching it in real time, I went, oh, because it looked like he kind of rolled up on Nussmeier. That did not happen. Garrett was completely fine and played the rest of practice, but it didn't look awesome just in practice. It was a sack. And this kind of thing continues to happen every single day. and you look at the running plays that LSU ran in these 11-on-11 snaps in the final period of practice, and you see a lot of stop at the line of scrimmage, 1 yard, TFL, 3 yards, TFL. And that's a concern. I don't know another way to put it. It is a concern at this point. Now, I don't think if you would have told me on August the 5th, they've been in pads for a week, that the defensive line with Jack Pyburn, Gabe Relaford, Patrick Payton, Jamari Butler, with Don McKinley and Ahmad Bro and Jacobian Guillory and Bernard Gooden, that group is going to give a brand new offensive line some issues early in camp. Yeah, that I absolutely would buy that. So I'm not here to panic. I'm not here to absolutely label this offensive line as a bust, to say that LSU's in significant trouble. I'm just here to tell you that this is not like, it's just the defensive line seems to be doing a little bit. No, they're kicking their butt. The defensive line is kicking their butt at this point in camp. Garrett Nussmeier rarely has a lot of time back there, which he did a lot last year in games, and they're not running the ball very well. So it is a concern. It's not something that I'm going to go nuts about on August the 5th. I think LSU's defensive front is good. I just rattled off all those defensive linemen. We know Whit Weeks can play. We know Harold Perkins is healthy. I believe West Weeks is having a nice start to camp. He had a great pass breakup against Trey'Dez Green today. We saw Devon Keys play as a freshman. And now Tylen Singleton is starting to make some plays. He had a sack in the 11-on-11 today. But it was a significant win for the defensive front, no question about it. When I go through the chart, I'll just go through this. I don't want to belabor the point or go too deep into the weeds, but you're listening, you'll catch this pretty quickly. Nussmeier had to tuck in and run on the first snap, would have gotten 2 or 3 yards. Durham ran for 3. Gooden, TFL. Nussmeier, sack. Gooden, TFL. Jordan Gilbert, pass breakup. Jack Pyburn, sack. That's the first team versus the first team. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 snaps, and the defense basically won all of them. That's a big deal. 7 snaps. 7-0. Then you go to the first team getting back out there. Pyburn, 5-yard loss, TFL. Nussmeier forced to check it down to Durham for 1 yard. Then the next 2 plays, the last 2 plays the first team ran, after getting beat 9 plays in a row, Nussmeier hit Parker over the middle for 15, 18 yards for a first down. And then on the next play, which has happened every day in fall camp so far, LSU ran a little counter to Caden Durham on the offensive right side. He broke a tackle from Jordan Gilbert on the second level, 45-yard touchdown. And he's done that every day. And I feel like it was nice to see the offense throw that counterpunch finally. And what it tells me, and it reinforces to me, is that this LSU offense is really explosive. And we know this to be true. You watched Caden Durham last year. He ripped off a couple long runs against South Carolina. The first 2 plays of the game against South Alabama, he accounted for 170 yards. He busted a big one against Alabama. Busted a big one against Baylor. He is explosive. And when he gets a crease, which he got on the final running snap, he was gone. One guy to beat, he beat him. And then Nussmeier, when given a little bit of time, was able to hit Kyle Parker. And what you see from Garrett Nussmeier and these wide receivers in 7-on-7 is just pitch and catch. I told you this the first day when Garrett Nussmeier didn't throw an incompletion. I told you this the second day when he was 8 for his first 8 and then threw 1 incompletion. And every day we watch 7-on-7, which is catered to the offense, obviously, Nussmeier is just dotting it up. It's awesome. And then they get into 11-on-11 and it gets clunky. And that is a reflection of the offensive line getting beat more often than you want. Now, here's the deal. The defensive line, while there is certainly an element of playing together on the defensive line, it's really go beat your man. On the offensive line, there's a lot more cohesion that has to happen. And this is a new group. Braylon Moore is a new center. Weston Davis is a new right tackle. Tyree Adams is a new left tackle. DJ Chester is playing left guard for the first time. And then you go to the right side and you've got Josh Thompson. You saw Cohen Eccles in there a little bit today. with the first team. And so they have work to do from a unity standpoint, from a cohesion standpoint, from a working together standpoint. And that takes some time. Matt will tell you on his show, he has charted the one-on-ones on the offensive defensive lineman while I've watched 7-on-7, so I haven't seen this part. I'm just relying on his reporting and what he says on his show and what we talk about after practice and what goes into the practice reports. In one-on-ones, the offensive linemen are winning. Like when they just play, they go to one-on-one, they're showing good feet, they're showing good hands, they're showing strength. They are doing their job in the one-on-ones. They get into 5-on-5 basically at the box, 5-on-6 at times, and it tilts the way of the defense. And there's encouraging things on the one-on-one perspective. There are encouraging things when you look at the size of LSU's offensive line, when you look at the star ratings in high school in the offensive line. Like there are some things that lend themselves to LSU fielding a really good offensive line. They're not playing very well right now, and I don't think it's too early to say that. Again, being very clear, I'm not suggesting this group can't get any better, that LSU is doomed, that LSU, your fears are being realized and they can't block. I'm telling you right now, a week into camp, they're not playing very well. And I'm confident from being at practice, if I went into Brad Davis's office right now where he's probably going through game tape, he would be far more critical of his unit than I'm being right now. Because you can hear him on the practice field just ripping guys. He sees it. He knows they can be better than that. And I think the sense is, and this is me, this is not based in fact. This is me projecting down the line and me hypothesizing based on the things that I see in what I'm watching in camp. I think there is a realization from a lot of people. Myself, I certainly would stand by this. This team is essentially going to go as the offensive line goes. Because if they block, LSU is going to be awesome. If they can't, LSU's not going to be able to move the ball. Because if you can't run the ball and they're pressuring Nussmeier and he can't do the things he needs to do from the pocket, he can't get out of the pocket and hurt you, you're going to be wasting your wide receivers and you're going to be in a world of hurt. Like, it seems oversimplified when I do that, but I'm not sure it is. And right now, it's reasonable to suggest the offensive line is getting whipped more often than it is succeeding. And that's got to change over the next 4 weeks. Still time. There's still a lot of time. They've got to get some things together up front. On the flip side, LSU's front four and front seven looks very, very, very good on defense. That's your Genesis opening drive here on this Tuesday. We're brought to you by Terrell May, licensed realtor in Louisiana and Mississippi with Trusty Properties. Look, if you're looking for that new home, 5 to 20 acres in St. Francisville or in Ethel, in the Felicianas, and you don't really know where to go, well, you go to Terrell May, Trusty Properties. Maybe you want some property in Woodville or Centerville, Mississippi. This is all in Daryl's backyard. He's a St. Francisville resident. If you're looking for land for your next home, call my guy, Terrell May at Trusty Properties. Here's his cell phone number. This is who you call. You call his cell. Hey, Terrell, I'm looking for land. Hunt told me about you. What can you do? He's happy to help. It's 225-268-6915. Again, 225-268-6915. That's Terrell May with Trusty Properties, a name you can trust. We'll come back, chat with Cat Terrell on the Saints. Devin Neal down for a couple of weeks. How big a deal is that for the running backs? It's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. You know, when you buy a new vehicle, which you can do at Genesis, you generally have to be shown the features of the vehicle, right? And so you go to the lot and you get in and you have one of your sales ambassadors come in and show you all those bells and whistles. And that's sometimes not all that pleasant because it's like 100 outside and the dealership's on a blacktop. It can get a little unpleasant. Well, how about this? You go ahead and get your vehicle from Genesis of Baton Rouge, and when they do that for you, they're going to pull the car into the showroom into a climate-controlled area that's air-conditioned, so you don't have to sit there and sweat while they go through the awesome features of your new Genesis. It's just one of the perks. They go the extra mile at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go by and see the facility. It feels more like a spa, like a 5-star hotel, than car dealership. They're an airline in Pico. You can find them online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. The entire fleet is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
This Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Chat with Glen West coming up in 15 minutes. Glen was out there sweating on the Ponderosa today, talking some LSU. But let's shift gears and go to the New Orleans Saints. Kat Terrell, Saints reporter for ESPN.com, good enough to give us a little bit of time here on this Tuesday. Kat, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're quite well now that we're inside in the air conditioning. I know you can probably relate to that. This morning's getting a little bit long.
Yeah.
But the Saints,
a little bit.
The Saints are headed out to Southern California, where that won't be quite as big an issue here coming up this weekend. But the news of the day for me is that Devin Neal is going to miss a little bit of time. What can you tell us about that, and how big a deal is that first for him?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I think that he had a really good opportunity there, and Kellen Moore admitting he's going to miss several weeks is tough. You know, this is a really critical time for everybody. They're about to play in their first preseason game, and he no doubt would have played a lot because Kellen Moore said Alvin Kamara is not playing in that game. So it's definitely a bummer, but, you know, I think that he's already shown a lot early in camp. And so, you know, he'll be back and, you know, he's not going to lose his spot, but, you know, it was a good opportunity for him.
What have you seen from Devin Neal? Obviously, we know he's the leading rusher in Kansas history, but what's he done in his first training camp?
You know, I thought he looked good for a rookie. I think that competition is kind of wide open. That's what I was saying. It was a good opportunity. Behind Alvin Kamara, you got a lot of guys that are fighting for that spot, and there hasn't been any real standouts, although I do think, you know, it's been good for Kendre Miller, who was injured last year, to get those reps. But I definitely think it's been a good start for him.
Kendre Miller have a better chance to be the second-team running back or miss the team altogether?
My sense is he'll be the second-team running back, which is, you know, definitely a 180 from last year when he was immediately hurt right out of the gate of training camp and got on Dennis Allen's bad side, which kind of lingered throughout the season.
I feel like me, just from afar, covering things and kind of paying attention, I was soured on Kendre Miller for the fact that he wasn't around, and I think maybe Dennis Allen soured me on him, and maybe it wasn't all Kendre's fault, that it was just being in the coach's doghouse. What's your sense of that entire situation and whether or not this is kind of a fresh start for Kendre Miller?
You know, I think that's kind of somewhere in the middle. I think that Allen was frustrated that I believe Kendre injured his hamstring like day one,
yeah.
And maybe he felt he wasn't doing enough to, you know, properly be ready for practice, and thus leading to an injury. I don't know. I just know that he just got on his bad side, and from then on, it kind of seemed like they didn't believe in him. And that was one of the things Kellen Moore talked about at the beginning of camp. He said it was a blank slate for everyone, and I think that's really good for Kendre, just in terms of his confidence. You know, look, maybe he's the guy the next after Kamara, maybe he's not, but I do think he deserved to get that chance this year with a new coaching staff, a new start, and to be able to kind of get that off his back and see what he's got. And so I'm excited to see that this year.
What about Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Obviously a guy that's very familiar to those in this market, being that he played high school and college football here. What's his training camp been like?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because, as I was saying, there are a couple of guys competing for that spot. So when Kellen Moore was asked how many running backs would make the roster, he's not going to say exactly, but he did say 3 to 4. So obviously you're looking at Kamara. I would assume Miller. So you're probably thinking Neal. So who gets that last spot? Does it go to someone does it go to Clyde? Does it go to Cam Akers? I'm really not sure. So it'll kind of be interesting to see how they divide up those reps against the Chargers to try to come to determine what they're thinking. So I think that could be a toss-up. As a LSU person myself, hope he makes the roster, but definitely not. I don't think that's a given at this point.
Do we have any sense on how Kellen Moore is going to handle the preseason? He's never done it anywhere. Now he's the first-time head coach. So what do you think the focus and emphasis will be with this game against the Chargers?
Well, everyone's going to be watching the quarterbacks, right? I think that's the biggest question. How do they handle the quarterbacks? And just, how these practices go. As reporters are always just standing on the sideline kind of chatting whenever there's downtime. And one of the main things we were chatting about is how do you divide up these snaps? Do you give Rattler one series with the first-team offensive line and then Shuck a series with the first-team offensive line and go from there? Or do you just say, hey, Rattler gets 2 quarters, Shuck gets a quarter, Hayner gets a quarter? I don't know. You're trying to build team chemistry too, but I do think the most important thing that's going to come out of this game is the quarterbacks and how he handles that, and if any quarterback is stepping up. Other than that, you really just want to see how these guys are going to handle competition that's not themselves, because right now we're talking about, these great plays some of the defensive players have made and things like that. But does that mean those defensive players are good or the quarterbacks are bad? You don't actually know until you see them against other competitions. So I'm excited for it, and I know the players are probably thrilled to get to hit someone else in 6 days?
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like we'll
5
know?
days?
I think it's getting close. 5 days, I think. Do you feel like we'll know who they're favoring as the starting quarterback after this first preseason game?
They're trying really hard not to tip their hand either way. I mean, Kellen Moore, anytime you ask them about the quarterbacks, he'll just say, they're doing a great job. So I don't think on Monday they're going to say this is the starter. He did say at the beginning of training camp the Chargers game would kind of be the turning point. I think after that they start kind of looking ahead to the regular season. But just from my perspective, I don't think we've seen enough to determine either way which of these guys is going to start. I do think how a player handles a game situation goes a long way. If a player is okay in practice, but then suddenly he gets in a game and the lights come on and they look, great, I think that's important. And sometimes that does happen. And so maybe one of these quarterbacks will step up and we'll see that. But so far, I think no one's kind of taken that job and run with it yet.
Who do you think is going to be the starter in week 1?
That's a tough question. I think if I'm just basing it on what I've seen right now, I think it'll be Rattler. I think if Shuck continues to improve, I think Sunday was his best practice so far. If he continues to rise and plays well in the preseason game and it's close, then they might go with the rookie. But so far, to me, I think Rattler has been more consistent than Shuck, which makes sense. He's older. He's got time in an NFL system. So it makes sense that he would kind of, have a head start. But I just think that overall, we haven't seen enough consistency from any of these quarterbacks. And so that'll be a big thing going forward that we'll need to see.
You've got a feature up on ESPN.com talking about Tyler Shough and his entire career being a series of challenges and injuries and life changes. What have you learned about the Saints' earliest quarterback draft pick in the last 50 years that make him qualified to go through the challenges to battle for a starting quarterback spot?
Yeah, I think that he's very sure of who he is. And honestly, you could say that about 3 of these quarterbacks. They're all very confident in very different ways. And it has kind of been funny to learn about them. I think that Shough has gone through a lot. He will tell you he feels like it's made him uniquely qualified to have this job because, when you're in college, everyone's kind of the same age. Everyone's still figuring their life out with a few outliers. You get to the NFL, it's a job. These guys are married. They have kids. it's not like it was in college, and you have to figure out how you are going to relate to these guys on a whole different level. And I think that Chuck has already done a really good job of trying to do that. He kind of gets it, like just getting there early in the summer and immediately working out with people and trying to go out with these guys and get to know them, get to know their wives, things like that. Look, I'm not saying Rattler hasn't done that either. He has. Rattler also, just like Chuck, organized throwing sessions this summer. But I do think that he is definitely a different kind of rookie. He's about to be 26, been married a year. So in that sense, I think that helps him. But again, the second row of the story, it's no given. The job will not be handed to him. And so he's got to make these last few weeks of training camp count.
You want to read more about Tyler Shook, head over to ESPN.com. Read Kat's piece. It's up there right now. Catherine, we appreciate some time. We'll catch up down the road in training camp. Thanks.
Yes, thanks for having me. Looking forward to California tomorrow.
I bet you are. Y'all travel safe. That's Catherine Terrell from ESPN, is a Saints reporter, former Daily Reveille writer with me on that staff back in the early 2010s. So go back with Cat a long way, and she does an awesome job covering the black and gold for ESPN. All right, we come back. Glen West was out of practice today. We'll see if he had similar thoughts that I did. I led the show with him. We'll see what Glen's are when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. There are 2 tropical disturbances out there. I don't think either one of them are threats to the Gulf Coast at this point. Don't expect either to be, but we know during this time of year, storms are essentially inevitable around here. And if your insurance program is not set up to respond to those, it's not any good. It's pretty simple. So if you need a second set of eyeballs to make sure your property policy is going to respond properly to a storm, we'll call the Highland Insurance Group. Jonathan Carver and his team are fantastic to work with. They're experts technically, and they're an independent broker, meaning they've got contracts with dozens of carriers. So depending on what type of property you own, what kind of business you operate, they know what carriers best represent those companies, those types of businesses. And they'll be able to place you in a proper spot to make sure your property policy responds the way it should. That's the most important thing with insurance. You know you're going to pay more than you want to for insurance. I was in the business 7 years. That's the way everybody feels. But when you pay a lot and then a storm happens and you're not covered properly, that's the worst case scenario. Make sure for that good money that you pay that your property policy is correct. The Highland Insurance Group will help you out with that. They're here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. So wherever you are on the Gulf Coast in Louisiana, they've got markets for you. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Check them out online, HighlandIG.com.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? If you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. Choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, got a report on the New Orleans Saints. Let's shift gears back to LSU. Glen West, senior writer at Go 24/7. With us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glen, you find some air conditioning?
Found some air conditioning, and also cooled off. If you could see the setup that I have here with my phone, we switched things up for people who don't know. But if you could see the setup here, we're balancing some really good stuff here with the phone to make sure that it's in line with my 6'11" size.
Love to hear that. Very much appreciated. All right. I'll just go open-ended, and we'll just take the conversation wherever it leads. Your takeaways from today's practice?
The defensive line is completely winning the first week or so of camp that we've seen. that's got to be number one takeaway. I would imagine for everyone who's been out there covering these practices, those guys just really flying to the ball, whether it's Jack Piber and Patrick Payton. In the middle, you've got Bernard Gooden and Dominic McKinley making some really good plays. Harold Perkins coming off the edge as well at that star spot. I think he's made some really nice plays and consistently around the ball as well. Excuse me, my voices seem to be leaving me here.
All good.
And then, kind of in the middle of the field there with the linebackers, you got Witt and Wes Weeks. Those guys have been pretty consistently with the first team. Tylen Singleton, I really like what I've seen from him. So, look, the defensive line, I think, is the winners so far. And it's just about, we only get to see them go up against LSU's offensive line. So it's really just a question of how elite this defensive line is, or how much work maybe this offensive line still has to do over the next 4 weeks.
You care to try to answer that question here?
I think it's probably more so the offensive line just needs to be more connected as one. I mean, they've rolled out. The one thing I will say about this offensive line is they've rolled out a pretty consistent five over the first 5 or 6 days of practice. You've got Tyree Adams at left tackle. You've got DJ Chester at left guard, Braylon Moore at center, Josh Thompson at right guard, and Weston Davis at right tackle. So I do think maybe finding that five so early in camp can be a benefit for that group. And they've won individual reps. Like, I've been over there watching the the O-line, D-line one-on-one drills a couple times here over the first week or so. And those guys have talent. It's not like they're devoid of talent. They definitely can win their reps when it's one-on-one. I think just when you see them kind of go over to the 11-on-11 stuff where it's their five against the defensive line's five, it's the defensive line that's had a really, really good, kind of jump on those guys. So we'll see. I think I lean more towards the offensive line needing to have a little bit more consistency with their five and just more time to work together. And you do have 4 weeks here before the Clemson game to get that right.
And so kind of to piggyback on that, and this goes beyond the defensive line to kind of the defense as a unit, Matt Moscona looked at me on the sideline today somewhere towards the end of practice when we were going through 11-on-11, and he goes, "Is this defense like good?" And I was like, "It could be." Like, what's your answer to that question?
I think they are going to be much better this year. They were finished around the top 60, I think, in total defense last year. I think they can crack into that top 30, top 25. If we're seeing this translate over to real games, I was listening to your first segment there about Bernard Gooden, and the dude's been all over the place. I mean, you said 8 tackles for loss. I would probably guess it's more than that over the first 5 or 6 days of camp. He's been really, really good and really consistent for LSU, whether he's lined up next to McKinley or Bro. It doesn't really matter. He's been in there creating havoc, and that's honestly what this defense is predicated on. Like, that's the whole point of bringing Blake Baker in 2024, was to get this defense in a place where they're making plays at all 3 levels of the defense. And we haven't talked about the secondary yet, but I think those guys they've been able to keep up with the wide receivers. We've talked so much about this wide receiver depth so far in the offseason, but I think guys like PJ Woodland have taken really nice steps. I think Monsieur Delane is a really consistent coverage cornerback for them. I think AJ Halsey can come up and make some big-time physical tackles and is a big-time talker on that defense they really need at the safety spot. So there's definitely a lot of good vibes going on right now with the defense, I think, at all levels, and I'll just be curious to see how that carries over to game time.
You mentioned Halsey. Do you have 2 safeties that you like above the rest? They are cycling those guys in out snap to snap in the 11-on-11s and 7-on-7s.
Yeah.
I think we're losing Glen as far as the signal goes. Back, we can probably call him. We'll go ahead and call him there because we're on FaceTime there for the video feed. A little bit of, but that's I want to get Glen's answer to this because it's interesting. Before he answers, and I ask him the question again, like AJ Halsey and is usually out there, and Tamarcus Cooley, but also Jordan Gilbert and Deshaun Spears are playing as well. And there's all 4 of them, and they rotate very freely. In fact, to the point where you couldn't even identify one as the starting duo at this point. I've made the point over the last week that I like Halsey. I like his statistics on paper. I like his measurables on the field when I look at him. Like, I like him more than the others, but there is no, to me, surefire starter at this point. So, Glenn, I think we got you back now via the phone. Like, do you feel, are there two safeties you like over the other two?
Yeah, like I said, I think Halsey and Cooley are probably the two that have shown me the most so far. But like you said, they're rotating guys in and out. I mean, Deshaun Spears, is with the second team one rep, and then he's with the first team the next rep. The same deal with Jordan Gilbert. I think Gilbert, honestly, has been getting kind of the most first-team reps of anybody so far. And we'll see how long that lasts. I think he's somebody that at full health, LSU has trust in just because of how veteran of a player he is and how much experience he has. So I could see situations where it's Halsey and Gilbert or Halsey and Cooley and Gilbert. Like there's no shortage of combinations that LSU's trying right now. But if you had to pick two that I think LSU would love to kind of get right and maybe kind of solidify those two spots, I would say Cooley and Halsey would be the two big playmakers of this group.
Wouldn't mind that at all from my point of view. Kyle Parker is making a lot of catches. Where do you think he fits in here?
Yeah, he's been getting first-team reps, and he was getting first-team reps today, which was a little bit of a surprise to me. I thought, Barry and Brown had maybe locked down that other spot next to Chris Hilton, Davion Thomas. And look, I think when you're talking about spots and first-team and second-team reps with wide receiver, it's very much like the safety position right now. There's just so much working in and out of the lineup. And I think Kyle Parker is a sure-handed player. He's somebody that Brian Kelly, I think, has a lot of trust and faith in. Brian Kelly talked about him, pointed him out by name, I believe, last week in one of his press conferences as somebody that they have a lot of belief and trust in. He just was hurt a lot of last year with that wrist injury, and I'll be very curious to see what his role looks like. I think he's mostly been in the slot. I think he's got some versatility there, though. He's a great route runner. And he's somebody that Nussmeier is looking for in this offense. So I think that, look, they have a top six for sure. Like they have a nice rotation of six players right there at the top that they're rotating in and out. It's just going to be about what situations those players are best fit for.
You have a thought on the backup quarterbacks?
I think for me right now, that's still very much up in the air. Van Buren has had a couple of good moments. I honestly, the way the ball comes off of Colin Hurley's hand, I really, really like his throwing ability. He's just got a natural touch and a great mechanics that are already there working with him. So I don't have a good feel one way or the other. If you had to, ask me who I think the backup right now would be, it would probably be Van Buren. But I'm not counting Colin Hurley out of this race at all. I think he's got some real talent as a thrower, and that's something we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, I think, translate more and more.
Matt and I were talking about this, and I wrote it in my practice report. I felt like Harlan Berry got significant amount of reps with the ones right behind Caden Durham, and Caleb Jackson seemed to be working with the twos. What have you made of Harlan Berry's first week in fall camp?
Good. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've seen with Harlan is that they've added a lot of upper body weight. I was around him and kind of the team some this summer when they were having those camps for high school players, and the freshmen and sophomore guys were out there coaching and helping out with Frank Wilson and stuff. And Harlan just looks so much bigger in the chest. I mean, he's put on a good 10 pounds, I think, since he's gotten to LSU. I think they have him listed at 195. So I think, BK was asked about him in particular today, and he said it's still something where he's learning the system and learning how to be a good college running back in terms of running through tackles and breaking tackles and things of that nature. But he's no doubt one of the more explosive pieces in this offense if they're able to get him up to speed with the college game. And I have no doubt he'll be able to do that at some point. It's just, does it happen early in the season, or is it something that takes a little bit more time to materialize?
He's Glen West, senior writer over at Go 24/7. Tell him what y'all have got up on the site as fall camp continues.
Yeah, practice reports, daily practice reports are up. We've got a big week of recruiting here coming up for LSU. 4-star wide receiver Jace Matthews commits at the end of the week, and LSU's in the mix there. So we'll see what happens, but we'll have all the practice coverage, all the interviews, everything that y'all need over there at Go 24/7. So thanks for having me on, Hunt.
Absolutely. We'll see you later this week.
All right. Sounds good.
He's Glen West, senior writer, Go 24/7. There's a lot to chew on out there. We are given more access than we ever have with any other coach. When Ed Ogeron took over as an interim, he really open things up for the media at that point. I think that was in good faith and just trying to create a little bit more relaxed vibe around a program that was dealing with a lot of tension with the firing of a coach. As Ed Ogeron's tenure went on, that access shriveled down. We're able to watch a lot, and we're able to report on a lot, and I think that it certainly makes the month of August more interesting for us as opposed to just, look, when I was first covering the team with Les Miles as the head coach, we would go out for the first 15 to 20 minutes. We would watch them do the big cat drill. They would do that for 8 minutes, and then we watch them separate into position groups, and they'd run through cones and hit bags. Then we watch the quarterbacks throw it around to the receivers uncovered. And like that was practice, go home. And you'd have to write a practice report on that. Well, now we're getting 11 on 11. We're watching rotations. We're watching starters go against starters. We're watching, real live action reps that are tackling to the ground, which is stuff we hadn't seen a ton of. So I feel like there's a lot to chew on. We're learning a lot. I still think it's early to make definitive claims or make massive sweeping judgments, but a lot of people that are watching are agreeing on things, which suggests that our eyes aren't lying to you. You're not looking for confirmation bias. Like everybody's kind of looking at the same thing and coming up with the same type of assertion. So it's an interesting time, and we'll continue to break things down. We're going to do some more at the top of the second hour. I'm going to go through the guys that are with the first team every time, every play, and then we'll go into something where the rotations are, and we'll talk a little bit about the depth chart at the top of hour number 2. But when we come back, we'll meet the freshmen to close out hour number 1.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Riley Herbst from 2311 Racing here, and you know what grinds my gears? Waiting for coffee. But instead of counting frappes and lattes, I fire up Chumba Casino. No apps, no fuss, just fun social casino games to pass the time. By the time my coffee's ready,
order for Riley.
I've already taken a few victory laps. Next time you're stuck waiting, make it entertaining. Play for free at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Tuesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Trusty Properties. Darryl May with Trusty Properties. If you're a hunter and you don't have property to hunt on, but you want to make that your reality, well, Darryl May is here for you, whether that's in the Felicianas, East or West, Point Capee, even up to Woodville, Mississippi, up to Natchez, anywhere in Louisiana or Mississippi. Darryl May at Trusty Properties can help you with that land purchase. Maybe it's not a hunting property. Maybe it's where you want to build your forever home. Maybe it's where you want to do some agriculture. If you'd like to invest in some land, Darryl May can help you out. I'm going to give you a cell phone number. It's 225-268-6915. You can also call Trusty Properties directly at 225-766-6162 and tell them Hunt Palmer sent you. Said, hey, Darryl, I'd like to look at some land listings. He's happy to help you with that. Darryl May is a St. Francisville resident, went to Catholic High here in Baton Rouge. This is his part of the world. If you're looking for a little piece of it for yourself, Darryl is happy to help you with that. All right, let's meet the freshmen to finish the hour.
Meet the freshmen. Freshmen, meet the freshmen. They're the newest Tigers on the team.
2 more today from this class of 2025. Aiden Anding is where we will start. 4-star recruit from On3, from 24/7, and from Rivals, top 10 player in the state of Louisiana from Ruston at Ruston High. He was nationally, in terms of the On3 composite, 171st in the country, 26th at his position. 5'11", 160 pounds, just on the smaller side, but a great athlete. Was a great high school basketball player at Ruston, and obviously a fantastic football player as well. He's going to be the less heralded cornerback in this class. DJ Pickett is the more heralded guy. But we've seen a lot of 4-star corners from the state of Louisiana come in and really be able to play, especially under the tutelage of Corey Raymond. So Aiden Anding, for me, like as I look at this team out on the practice field, he's not in the mix with the 1s or 2s. They've got a lot of veteran, older players at cornerback, so he'll have a chance to wait in the wings, put some weight on that frame, and continue to work on his technique, because he did a lot of things at Ruston on both sides of the ball. But he's a corner at LSU, guy that Corey Raymond identified early and wanted to bring in, and a guy that the recruiting services really liked a lot. So Aiden Anding, not quick to the field, I wouldn't imagine, like DJ Pickett is. We'll talk about DJ Pickett in the second hour because they were putting him against Chris Hilton on every rep, and that is very telling to me. But Aiden Aiding is the first of our Meet the Freshman today, 4-star corner from Ruston. Second is Jacob Bradford. Jacob Bradford comes from Catholic High. 4-star recruit from the folks over at 247, 4-star by ESPN, 4-star by Rivals. 1-3 had him as a 3-star recruit, but you're looking at a guy that 247 said was number 6 player in the state of Louisiana last year, is a top 175 player in the country. He's a safety, 5'11", a little bit more put together at 195, and you can see that when you go out there and look at him. He's in a position group that has Deshaun Spears in it, that has, Tamarcus Cooley and AJ Halsey, some older players that are more physically imposing, but he does not, just obviously stand out as a freshman body at this point. Bradford had a great career at Catholic High. Guy that was a number 5 overall player by 247 Sports in the state of Louisiana. Was first team All-State as a junior in 2023, and helped Catholic win in a ton of games over there with Hudson Fuller and the Bears. He also played basketball, ran track, really good athlete. Obviously, you're aware of his younger brother, Blaine. And Jacob is behind a big group at LSU at safety, but he was actually today working with the Stars, meaning the Harold Perkins' group that plays the star position. That group was Harold Perkins, Charles Ross, CJ Jim Coyley, and Jacob Bradford. So Perkins and some young pups that are really, really athletic and can really run and are very versatile. The guys that play that star position are very versatile by nature. Perkins is a great example of that. Ross is a linebacker who can run like a deer. And then you've got Jim Coyley, who's 6'3", 225, 230 pounds. He is freakishly big for his class. I looked at this up today. Eric Reed was smaller his final year at LSU than CJ Jim Coyley is right now. And then Jacob Bradford in that group is guys who are big enough but can also run a lot at that star position. So Bradford, not a huge factor at this point. Neither is Anding. These are two guys that are going to have to wait their turn, but certainly some very, very talented players from the state of Louisiana. It's always good to keep those guys in purple and gold because more often than not, eventually in their time, they show up and really help at one point or another. So that's another edition of Meet the Freshmen. We're 3 into that. Means we've talked about 6 of the LSU freshmen. Got to go through the end of next week to finish up that entire process, but we'll knock out 2 every day moving forward here until we have hit them all. That's it for hour number 1 here. Fast moving hour number 1, as you might expect. This time of year is just so much football to dive into. I open giving my practice report from today. If you missed it, 1, you can find it on LouisianaSports.net for free. 2, you can find it on demand wherever you find your sound. It'll be up at Hunt on LSU. Cat Terrell talking Saints with us. Glen West talking Tigers. So that thing moved pretty quickly for hour number 1. We'll pause for Sports Center national headlines. I'll get you my thoughts on a depth chart at the top of the hour. Freaks from Bruce Feldman and Sharif Ishak at the bottom of hour 2.
The Hunt Palmer Show.